if I were to ask you, who are you picking to have the number one seed in the AFC this year come playoff time, what team would you pick? A lot of you all probably are going to go with the Ravens, the Chiefs, maybe the Bengals or the Bills, but my pick to be the number one seed in the AFC for this season is going to be the Houston Texans. To me, the Texans, top to bottom, are the most complete team in this conference. They got a stacked defense. This should easily be a top 10 unit. They got Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson. Both of those guys could easily have double-digit sacks this year for Houston. You got a great secondary. Jalen Petrie is the most underrated defensive player in the NFL. Nobody talks about how good Jalen Petrie is. A lot of y'all, if I were to ask you, who are your top 5 safeties in the league? You can't even name more than 3 at best. Jalen Petrie is going to be in that discussion at the end of this year. Derek Stingley, I felt he was more talented than Sauce Gardner when he was coming out of the draft. And when he got fully healthy last year, he was a top 3 corner in the game. He easily not just could be the best cornerback in the NFL this year, but he could be in the conversation to be one of the very few defensive backs to win Defensive Player of the Year. That's how good Derek Stingley is going to be. So you're going to have a top 10 defense as well with the top 10 offense. I mean, Houston's receiving core is simply unfair. You should never be allowed to have 2 of the NFL's premier route runners on the same roster. But you have that now when you acquire Stephon Diggs in that trade with the Buffalo Bills and you pair him up with Tank Dell. One of these dudes is going to be open at least every single play CJ Stroud drops back to throw the ball. You also have Nico Collins, one of the best one-on-one 50-50 ball wide receivers in the game. You got Joe Mixon. He is up there in age, but he's going to be an improvement at running back from what you had in Devin Singletary, who at best was above average back. Joe Mixon is still very good at making guys miss after contact. He does have pretty good vision. And behind the offensive line that should be slightly improved this year, Houston's offense is going to be no worse than a top 10 unit. And at best, this could be the NFL's number one offense this year. I don't see how CJ Stroud doesn't win MVP this year. This is a kind of roster that you could only build on Madden. You got a good running back. You got elite receiving core. You got an elite receiving core. And if your offensive line improves, which you were battered up last year on the offensive line, you had like several guys get injured like around week 4, week 5 of last year. If you can stay healthy and you improve in that area, I easily see the Texans finishing with a 14-win record and clinching that first round bye come playoff time and making it to the Super Bowl. In terms of being good top to bottom, having really no holes, no weaknesses, it doesn't get better than the Houston Texans. How many areas of concern do the Texans have? Only their offensive line, that's it. And the Ravens have the same concern with their offensive line. They have a lot of new faces who are going to be starting on their offensive line this year due to the departures that they had this offseason. So if you consider the Ravens to be the best team in the NFL, I don't get how you wouldn't have the Texans in that same conversation, even if you disagree with me about them finishing with the number one seed in this conference this year. Because Kansas City, from a talent standpoint, isn't as good as what the Texans are. And there aren't too many other teams that are as good as what the Texans are from a complete standpoint of, they're going to have elite defense and elite offense. Most teams have one or the other. They either have above average offense and elite defense, or elite offense and a lackluster defense. With the Texans, you could be one of the rare teams that is top 10 on both sides of the ball. You got a great coach in D'Amico Ryans. Your offensive coordinator is more than likely going to be a head coach next season. The Texans have the stars perfectly aligned, not just to become the best team in the AFC this season, but to make a deep playoff run and potentially win the Super Bowl. CJ Stroud is in ascension mode. He's in his second season, and we already consider this dude to be a top 5, top 7 quarterback in the game. Imagine how good he's going to be this year. He potentially could be competing with Patrick Mahomes for the title as the best quarterback in the NFL with a supporting cast that he has this year. Elite offense, elite defense. There's no way Houston, to me, doesn't end up winning the title as the best team in the AFC conference for the 2024 NFL season.